Hey, howdy, hey, all my fellow fans. Well, this is it. The final part of my Q&A special. No big intro really needed here, so let's just get right on in with our first question. Okay, so we start off with our first question from Oren Nelson. Favorite piece of Thomas merchandise? Don't remember if I've said this already or not, but my favorite piece is my Let's Go Thomas. I love this toy. I know some people may think it looks a bit creepy, but trust me, it really isn't. My favorite place Thomas suggests is probably the Knapford Station. The other two, however, Farmer McColl's and Boulder Mountain, are pretty fun too. I know this toy isn't exactly for everybody, but I personally like it. It's a very cool piece to have. And here's their second question. Who is your favorite Thomas narrator? Well, obviously, that trophy belongs to none other than George Carlin. I respect Ringo and Angelus and Baldwin and so on, but George was very unique for his time, because he gave all the characters a distinct voice and personality that honestly flowed much more compared to the others. Sure, Angelus had a few, and the same goes for Baldwin, and even Britton had a fair few good ones. Ringo, to be honest, just used his normal voice, which kind of took away a slight bit, but he definitely had emotion, I won't deny that. But George's voices were consistent, and his storytelling was on point. That is why he's my favorite. And here's their third question. Which classic Thomas episode is your favorite, and which one is the best in your opinion? Okay, those who may or may not remember, my favorite classic Thomas episode is Thomas Percy and the Post Train. Everything about this episode is just perfect to me. The characters, music, atmosphere, everything. I'd watch this episode 1,000,000 times and never get bored with it. But to pick an episode that I think stands above all others, I have no clue. There's tons of different ones between model and CGI. There's just no way you can pick only one. And their fourth question, best Thomas VHS. I personally think it's either 10 Years of Thomas or The Gallant Old Engine. Both, I feel like, have a very great selection of episodes. 10 Years has a nice mixture from seasons 1 to 4, and Gallant the same, but only season 4. And that works great for me, because my favorite season 4 episode is on that tape. Now, give or take, some of you guys might not fancy some of these episodes, but what matters to me is that I think these two are pretty much as perfect as you can get. Which is funny, because this ties in with your last question, what Thomas tape is your favorite? Coincidentally, it's these two tapes. And what I just said is exactly how I feel for both. These two tapes are so nostalgic to me. Sure, I had a lot of other Thomas tapes growing up, but out of all of them, these were the two I pretty much played the most on top of maybe a few others. These are just such awesome tapes. Okay, here's our first from NateTrain98. If you could, how would you reintroduce Lady? I don't really know if there's a way you can reintroduce her. There's so many conspiracies with her from what I've heard, and I just don't really see her becoming a permanent character. Personally, if you take away the magic part about her and just leave her as, say, maybe a figment of Thomas's imagination and he can only visit her in, like, dreams or something, then just keep her like that. She really doesn't serve any purpose to the railway itself, so there's no need to reintroduce her if she isn't going to do anything. You see what I'm saying? Furthermore, like I said, you just leave her at that. Second question. Do you think Thomas should have ended with a full-fledged movie as the series finale? I don't know. I mean, it really depends on what concept you have to close out the whole series. I wouldn't have cared if it was a singular episode or a movie, so long as it's good. With something like Royal Engine, that kinda did, but also didn't feel like a finale, whereas Journey Beyond Sodor, for example, felt that way. I don't know, it's a bit confusing. But, yeah, that's where I stand on that. Third question. Speaking of movies, have you heard about Mark Forster directing an upcoming Thomas movie, and if so, how do you think it should go? Well, I've not heard a word on that, because I don't keep up to date with upcoming Thomas stuff, so I can't give you an answer for that. Fourth question. If Thomas's show was to be brought back and actually be good, what would be your wish list for it? Well, I think like most of us, we'd want to see more Railway series adaptations. There's a bunch of those I think that would have looked great in CGI. Like the Henry story people talk about. Doubleheader, I think it is. I'd really like to see that. I want to see more stories from the small Railway engines, as I've really grown to like Mike, Rex, and Bert. I think the Culdy Fail engines have some great episode material, and I'd even like it if we had some of Chris Audrey stories adapted, like Drip Tank, Scrambled Eggs, or whatever the hell it's called, and all those other crazy stories. These are just a small handful of what I'd like, but that should give you at least a good idea. And their last question, thoughts on Journey Beyond Sodor? Well, just like I've said for every other Thomas movie question I've had so far, I'm not going to spoil too much until I do my ranking video, but I will tell you, I think it's great. I feel like there are some people who are just a little too critical about it. I don't really have a lot of major gripes with it, but you will find out more when I review it. And here's our first question from Stuart Barkley. What do you think of Sesame Street? You'll be happy to know, but I actually really like Sesame Street. I still think it's a pretty cute show. Granted, I've not seen a whole lot of the newer episodes as I kind of shifted away from that to move on with other interests of mine, but I still very much have a soft spot for this show. And their second question, what are your top 5 favorite Thomas movies? 2 words, ranking video. I promise I will do this as soon as I can, because it's been quite a while since I've watched any of the 14 movies. I need to pull all of them out, and I need to know where I truly stand with them. Just hang in there, guys. It will come. Third question, do you like Winnie the Pooh? Oh, absolutely. I've never stopped liking Winnie the Pooh. It's one of my personal favorite childhood shows. I'm actually in the process of working on a collection for that particular franchise, and I do have about a medium-sized collection. I still have tons more, though, that I do need to find. I may or may not do a collection video on that in the later future, but we'll see what happens. Fourth question, who is your favorite My Little Pony character? Well, if some of you remember, you heard me say that Twilight was my favorite out of the main 6. However, my overall favorite character is Apple Bloom. I fell in love with her from the minute I saw her in Call of the Cutie. I just think she's so adorable. Not for nothing, but I'm really big into the Cutie Mark Crusaders, hence why I have a soft spot for Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle as well. I should also mention that a long while back, an ex-friend of mine actually got me a shout-out from Michelle Kreber, the voice of Apple Bloom, and I will always cherish that. It's just everything about Apple Bloom is so freaking cute. And their last question, Super Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog? Ooh, that's another tease question. I like both franchises, but honestly, I like Sonic just a little more. That's the way it's always been. No offense to Mario, but I find Sonic in many cases to be a little more badass. And here we have our first question from Rusty Red Scrap Iron. Do you watch South Park? If so, who were your favorite characters? I tried watching South Park a long time ago, and it was just one of those shows I really couldn't get into. There are some clips that I've seen, and they are pretty funny, but as a whole, I don't care for it. Second question, favorite movie from 2022? Well, the only 2 movies I saw in that year were Disenchanted and the LA remake of Pinocchio. That's tough, though, because both movies were actually really good. But I guess if I had to choose one over the other, I already have a deep connection with this particular one, so I'd have to say the live-action Pinocchio. I think that movie gets way too much hate for the stupidest of reasons. I already knew I wasn't going to see a copy and paste of the original Disney movie, but that's fine, because some of the changes they made weren't that bad. But anyways, yeah, that's what I would choose. And their third question, were you aware of the 2003 Thomas Bible that came out recently? Yes, I was. I didn't really pay attention to it when it was first released, but then I checked out the video by Thomas Theorist, and all I can say is, it's something. We at least know now why the hit era sucks as badly as it does. Fourth question, which Thomas season out of the 2 do you prefer? Season 4, or Season 5? Not gonna lie, I kinda prefer 4 to 5. No offense, but Season 5 is too overrated. Which isn't to say that it's a bad season. No, far from it. But there are times when I don't want to listen to crazy, over-the-top stories. I want nice, calm, and peaceful. You know, something I can mellow out to. That's why I prefer 4. But I still very much like 5, don't get me wrong. And their last question, which line from Dr. Robotnik is your favorite from the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog series? Well, Dr. Robotnik has a lot of funny lines, but for some reason, this one just makes me die laughing. Don't ask me why, it's just funny to me.
When I fell into the vat, the only part of my body that didn't get soaked in the super strength potion was my caboose.
And here's our first question from the Sudrian A0. Thoughts on the cut, pushed forward episodes of Season 21 of Thomas & Friends? I really don't know how to answer that, because I actually don't remember which ones were pushed forward. Truthfully, it's been a while since I've watched anything CGI Thomas, because I'm just not into it right now. I think I said this already, but I do plan to review all the seasons at some point. Don't tell me the names of the episodes. I'll figure it out when I get around to doing it. But yeah, I can't give you any thought, because I just don't remember. And their second question, opinion on Cars. I had sort of a similar question like this, and I said that Cars is my favorite Disney Pixar movie. Obviously, that's because I'm a huge NASCAR nut, because there's a ton of real drivers in each of the 3 movies that I already knew. I will say, though, I don't think the Cars franchise is totally perfect, because, well, Cars 2 exists. And I'll admit, though, I do have a bit of a guilty pleasure for it, even though I know it's looked down on by many fans. Cars 3, on the other hand, an amazing pickup. You don't need another movie after that chapter. Where it ends is where it ends. But nothing to me ever beats the original. I could seriously watch this 1 billion times over any Pixar movie. That's how much I really love it. Their third question, out of the 2 classic Thomas compilation releases, which one do you think is better? The Greatest Stories or Engine Friends? I think Engine Friends is better, only because the theme is definitely more prominent here than The Greatest Stories. Because I think a huge majority of what's on that DVD honestly sucks. I wouldn't consider a bunch of these nowhere near The Greatest Stories, as there are far better picks than what they have listed. But I'm gonna dive in a little more deeper into both of these when I eventually do my reviews on them. I will probably get round to doing them sometime next year, so be on the lookout for those. Fourth question, have you ever watched Cyberchase? Indeed I have. In fact, that was the main show I used to watch when I was in middle school. This show really helped me to excel in all of my classes. More so in math, because by the time I got to middle school, everything got a lot harder, and there were some things I didn't properly understand, so naturally I struggled. But whenever I would turn to Cyberchase, it explained certain subjects in a way that I understood it more clearly, and soon enough, I got good grades in all of my classes. And I'll say this, that wasn't the only reason I watched this show. It was also because of the hacker. I would laugh at everything this guy did in that show. So not only was I learning to do better, but I got a few laughs. Sadly, they don't really show this hardly ever on TV anymore. I'd recommend this for anyone who struggles with whatever school subjects. It's pretty educational and a lot of fun to watch. And their final question, if there's any model series location you would like to see return in Thomas & Friends, what would it be? I don't know. Locations are just something I never really paid that much attention to. I know, I'm weird like that. I don't really care what locations come back, to tell you the truth. So long as they're good, whatever. And here we have our first question from Fire Dust. If you were in charge of making a CGI animated Theodore Tugboat movie that keeps true to the tone of the original show, but all the tugs and other characters had individual voices, who would you get to voice which tug and why? For example, Michael J. Fox as Theodore, Jodie Benson as Emily, etc. Okay, first, that was a mouthful question. But that's also a very interesting one. As big of a Theodore fan that I am, I think you're asking the wrong chica for voice picking. That's a topic that I've just never really given any thought to, because I kind of wouldn't want to see Theodore in CGI. It would just end up the same as Thomas, and I don't want to see something as wholesome as Theodore crash and burn. But, in this Invision, I will say I do like your suggestion for Jodie Benson as Emily. I can kind of see that. As for the others, I don't know. I'd have to make a list of every actor that I know of and really think who would fit who. So I can't really give you any of my suggestions, because I just don't have a clue. And their second question, are you excited for the Super Chris Pratt brothers releasing this April? Well, being that it's out, I've still not seen it yet. I honestly would like it if I had someone to go with, but I don't. Worst comes to worst, I'll probably just buy the DVD and check it out then. Hell, that's what I have to do with the new Shazam movie, so it is what it is. Third question, if you're interested, might I recommend collaborating with people like Duck Studios, Mullen Studios, or Thomas Fan 261 for any future Thomas VHS reviews? As cool as that sounds, the problem is, I'm not too familiar with the other two other than Thomas Fan 261. It would be nice to have him collab with me on some reviews, but I know he's got his own schedule on his channel to work out, and I also run a very tight schedule when I do these videos, so you have to be pretty quick in getting your lines to me so I can edit it all together and whatnot. I do appreciate the suggestion, but I'm probably not going to go down that road anytime soon. Fourth question, would you be interested in reviewing the US Theodore Tugboat releases, or would it be redundant considering you do Big Harbor commentaries? They would actually be pretty redundant, as anything I say for the commentaries of whatever episode would just get repeated right back. I did think about it at one point until I realized how it really wouldn't work, so I will not be reviewing the US Theodore tapes. The commentaries will continue though as is. And their final question, do you take Thomas VHS review requests? No, I do not. I already pre-planned these well ahead of time for each month, and that's pretty much the schedule I stick to. I'd only take requests if I didn't know which one to do next. But I pretty much have this all figured out, so at this time I'm not taking any VHS requests. Here's the first question from Lightning McQueen. Favorite Thomas character? Oh, well, that's easy.
Here's James!
No, that ship has sailed. My new favorite Thomas character is...
Spoilers.
I will not say that until I get around to doing my series for the top 10 favorite Thomas characters. I know I keep teasing you guys with these projects, but trust me, I think you'll be surprised. Their next question, favorite Thomas and Friends season? Well, as I've said numerous times in the past, my favorite is Season 3. Good stories, fantastic music, good character developments. What more is there to say? Third question, favorite Thomas merchandise range? Always has and always will be Ertl. The detail on those models are so exact compared to anything else. Plus, I love the limited edition models. Yeah, Ertl it's a very top-notch merchandise range in my book. Fourth question, favorite show besides Thomas and Friends? Hello? Do you know me by now?
Theodore, he's a tugboat and a friendly tugboat too.
And their last question, favorite movie ever? Oh my god, why do you guys love giving me such teaser questions? I don't know, I can't pick one. I've got tons of favorite movies. And not just kiddie movies, I mean actual movies like The Patriot, Forrest Gump, Cinderella Man. Actual good movies. Yeah, I don't know. Let's just leave it at there's a ton of movies that I like. Moving on. And here's the first question from Jet the Hawk 1998. Do you collect Yu-Gi-Oh cards? I'm only just starting to collect them. I was never that big into Yu-Gi-Oh beforehand, but now I'm obsessed with it. They do have some card backs I can buy at my local store, and very slowly but surely I'm working towards building up my own deck. It's gonna take me a while, but I'm trying. Their second question, thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog 3 with the info we have so far? I don't have any thoughts on that as I've not read up on the third, due to me not seeing the second one yet. I already have a hunch though that they're gonna do something with Shadow. I think it's inevitable by this point, but we'll see once I get around to watching the second movie. Third question, thoughts on the Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers movie? I've not seen it, so I can't give you my thoughts. It's one of those newer releases I'm not interested in. And their fourth question, favorite Disney sequel villain? Ooh, that's a tricky one. Well, not all Disney sequel villains are great, mind you. Some are kind of bland. But if I had to pick one, I guess the first one that comes to mind would probably be Zira from The Lion King 2. She's pretty demented. I think behind closed doors, Scar had to have taught her a thing or two before he died in the original, and she must have carried that over with her pride and not only swayed them, but also manipulated her own children, and mind you, to the point where she got one of them killed and blamed that death on another of her children. You know, the more you read into her, she's a very toxic parent and leader. Because of how she was swayed by Scar, who also has his own ways of manipulating others, and also blames Simba for Mufasa's death. I could sit here for hours and just talk about the millions of similarities with these two, but overall Zira is a bad bitch, both in a good and in a very bad way. And their last question, favorite Disney films from the 2020s? Well, I only saw just a small handful of Disney movies in the last 3 years. I already mentioned Pinocchio. Disenchanted was really good. Very interesting twist from the original, but granted I don't think it's better than Enchanted, but it's pretty much on par with the first. I think a year after this was out, I saw Soul finally, and that one was excellent. That movie instantly had me hooked as soon as I found Jamie Foxx was the main character, and I love Jamie Foxx. Same thing as before, I waited about a year or so when this was out, and then I finally saw Raya and the Last Dragon, and that one was excellent. Encanto I saw, very beautiful movie. And then this one I hesitated on for a long time because I wasn't too sure about it, until I finally gave in, and I checked out Luca, and that movie was really cute. But since then I've not watched any of the other newer releases because most of them I'm not interested in. But that is my small handful of movies that I've watched within the 2020s. And here is the first question from Chesapeake Productions. Should Tugs have continued on? If so, how many seasons do you think it would have lasted? I mean, I like Tugs, but I'm not a fanatic over it. Honestly, I don't see it continuing for a long number of seasons. 'Cause what could you have done with it after Big Freeze? I honestly don't think it would have continued after that. And to tie in with your next question, the same as before, but with the Jack in the Pack spin-off series, no, I don't think Jack in the Pack should have continued. It's boring enough already. I won't go into the extreme details though until I do my on-site and trusty friends review, so let's just leave this as there's only 4 Pack episodes I really like, and the others don't amuse me at all. And their third question, what is your favorite / most wanted piece of Lost Thomas media? Well, for most wanted piece, I want rushes of seasons 3 and 4. Particularly, I want to see how some of those crashes were done. I mean, there's got to be millions of takes on those for both seasons. But my favorite piece, I guess, the full director's cut of Magic Railroad. I'm still amazed at how many things they ended up changing before the final cut. Very, very interesting stuff. And their fourth question, of all the Railway series characters we never saw in the TV series, what character or characters would you have liked to see, model or CGI? The Coldy engines, I keep saying this. It would have been cool to see them both ways, actually. However, there's another group that would have been cool in model form. Mike, Rex, and Bert. I think they had some real story potential for the models, but I don't think they went with it because they're a lot smaller, so I can only assume the mechanics would have been all wonky. Yeah, they work so much better in CGI. I'm not really too sure on the whole Wilbert and 16 thing. Again, I've not read up too much on them, so I don't know how well they would have worked. But yeah, there's a few examples for you. And their last question, are you in the crowd of Thomas fans that completely don't like the hit era, or are you in the crowd who admits that it wasn't anything spectacular, but still okay? I'm in the crowd of, I think it was just okay, but definitely not spectacular. The hit era was bad, but it still had a few hidden gems. However, that doesn't make the whole series amazing in any capacity. It definitely had its faults, and it really didn't need to go in the direction it did. Had they stuck with the 8-minute time frame, but made them all sound like what the original stories would be like, then I think the hit era would have been a little more successful. But due to the lazy writing, I think it really shows how much the people it hit really gave a shit about Thomas by that point. Only some things were okay, but not everything. Okay, here we go with the first question from Jacob Ems. Besides Thomas and Tugs, what TV shows do you like? Get out your pen and paper, folks, cause here we go. Walking Dead, Doctor Who, Stranger Things, Witcher, Bluey, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, Rosie and Jim, Brum, Tots, Sooty, Ghost Adventures, Lucifer, Always Sunny, Big Bang Theory, George Lopez, My Little Pony, Once Upon a Time, Sonic, Mr. Rogers, Shining Time Station, EastEnders, Wiggles, Drake and Josh, Scooby-Doo, Powerpuff Girls, Tom and Jerry, Blue's Clues, Looney Tunes.
One eternity later.
And their second question, what characters from Thomas are your favorite, in-between favorite, and least favorite? Well, for favorites, I like Thomas, Henry, James, Percy, Toby, Duck, Donald, Douglas, Bill, Ben, Mavis, Skarloey, Rheneas, Duncan, Salty, Luke, Hero, Victor, Steven, and Yumbao. For in-between favorites, I guess Edward, Oliver, Diesel, Paxton, Sir Handel, Peter Sam, Rusty, Freddy, Mike, Rex, and Bert, Timothy, the list just goes on from there. And for least favorites, and oh my god is there a ton of them, these are just the characters that I either don't care for or outright despise, such as Gordon, Emily, Neville, Dennis, Sydney, Den, Dart, the Logging Logos, Rajiv, Raoul, Vinny, Kevin, Charlie, Scruff, Whiff, Stafford. Do I even need to continue? And their third question, do you take special guest requests for VHS reviews? No, kind of the same as my Big Harbor commentaries. I just keep it around my circle of friends for the most part. It's also because I'm not that close with a lot of the other people that some of you guys may suggest. I appreciate the offers, don't get me wrong, but my reviews and commentaries are going to stay exactly the way they are. And their fourth question, did you grow up with any childhood shows besides Thomas? If so, what are they? Well, of course. If you actually look back at some of my previous questions, a bunch of shows from what I just listed I grew up with. Like, well, Theodore is a big one. All those others I mentioned, like Wiggles, Mr. Rogers, Pokemon, etc. But some other shows I didn't mention that I did grow up with as well. You got classics like Dora, Little Bill, Maggie and the Ferocious Beast, Clifford, Arthur, Teletubbies, Dragon Tales. You know, ones like that. I mean, granted, I don't care for a few of these anymore, but you get the idea. And their final question, what are your favorite episodes from each of the first 7 Thomas seasons? Well, actually, I do have a similar question to this, but with all the seasons of Thomas. Give me a couple of minutes, it will be coming up very soon. And here is the first question from Jamie Raimundo. What is your favorite anime show? Well, of course, it's my Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, with something like Pokemon, for example, it was good for a long while until they just dragged it out. With Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, I know they made changes in the US dub, but that storyline was actually a little more fun whilst learning about the Pharaoh. I've binged this series at least 2 times by now, and I don't ever get bored with it. That's how much I love it. Second question, thoughts on Adventure Time? I really couldn't give a shit about it. I don't think it's funny at all. Moving on. Third question, favorite animated movie from the 1990s? Don't make me choose just one. There's a lot of good 90s movies. You've got the first 2 Toy Stories, An American Tail, Balto, Pagemaster, some of the early animated Scooby-Doo movies. There's so many I can't choose only one. It's impossible. Fourth question, favorite video game consoles? I either like GameCube or Switch. Something like the Wii was fine, but I don't really like the motion controls on the Wii Remote and the Nunchuck. But the GameCube is very nostalgic to me and has some of the best games. But the Switch is fun too. You got a lot of cool games on there, especially for the expansion packs. But those are the two consoles that I really like. And their final question, do you like pizza or pasta? I like both, plain and simple. Next question. And here is the first from Sir Duke 95. Which Met is your favorite? I cannot properly answer that, so I'm just gonna play this for you.
Well, I don't know. Don't make me choose.
And their second question, what's the weakest classic series episode? Bruh, there are a ton of weak Thomas episodes, particularly in the classic series. You can't choose just one, because whatever you choose could also be counteracted with another that's just as. I don't know, I might have to get back to you on that one. Might make a list to see how many weak ones there actually are, and who knows, I might even make that into a future video. Who knows? And here's their third question. Can Burger King foot lettuce give you cancer? How should I know? I don't like Burger King to begin with. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask that. And here's their fourth. Favorite Shining Time character and why? I know it's so biased as hell, but my favorite character is Mr. Conductor. Back then, he was pretty much the main reason why I was so invested in Shining Time. Particularly because, George Carlin, because I grew up with him a lot more than what I did with Ringo. I don't even remember seeing any of Ringo's episodes on TV. It was mostly just George. And I always loved the way he'd interact with the kids and tell them the Thomas stories, as if I was watching one of my own tapes. Now, granted, I love a whole bunch more characters since then, but Mr. C always holds a special place in my heart. So now you know why I'm such a George Carlin nut. Thank you, Shining Time! And here is their last. What do you think about the Signals Cross DVD? Okay, that's a weird one, but you will find out more about that when I eventually review that DVD. It ain't gonna be anytime soon, so maybe next year. And here is the first question from JP Brennan. What are your favorite episodes from all 24 seasons of Thomas, including the Jack in the Pack series? Alright guys, get ready. This is going to be quite a long list, and this is also going to answer your previous question, Jacob. So here we go. Season 1, Thomas's Train and the Flying Kipper. Season 2, Ghost Train. Season 3, Post Train. Season 4, Special Attraction. Season 5, Toby and the Flood and Put Upon Percy. Season 6, Scaredy Engines. Season 7, Salty Stormy Tale. Season 8, Halloween. Season 9, Respect for Gordon. Season 10, Thomas and Skarloey's Big Day Out. Season 11, Hector the Horrid. Season 12, Best Friends. Season 13, Tickle Pink. Season 14, No Favorite. Season 15, Percy's New Friends. Season 16, Percy and the Calliope. Season 7, Santa's Little Engine and the Phantom Express. Season 18, Thomas the Quarry Engine. Season 19, Thomas the Babysitter. Season 20, Love Me Tender. Season 21, The Fastest Red Engine on Sodor. Season 22, An Engine in Many Colors. Season 23, Heart of Gold. And Season 24, Young Bao and the Tiger. And as far as Jack in the Pack goes, I only like 4 episodes out of the whole series. Alfie Has Kittens, Jack Owns Up, Scaredy Scaredy, and Mud Glorious Mud. So there you go. There's all my favorites from each of the seasons. And their second question, thoughts on Toby's new whistle? I don't care for it. It's just one of the season 13 episodes that just exists to me. Plus, it's Pussy Toby and I can't stand that side of him. Definitely one of my least favorite Toby stories. Third question, will you do a video just dedicated to episodes not released on any home media and how you rank them? Yes, I actually intend on making a mini-series of that. I was actually planning on starting that next year, but I'm actually starting it now before the summer hits. And the first episode I'm doing is Hector the Horrid. I'm going to try and have that out in the next week or so be on the lookout. And their fourth question, what are your thoughts on the Cars video game? Oh, that is one of my favorite games. I've had my GameCube copy ever since I was little, and I still love playing it every once in a while. A lot of those races are so fun, but I also like cruising along Radiator Springs, looking for secrets or just doing tricks. I've not thought about it in quite some time though, but who knows, maybe I might pull it out and play it again. And their last question, will you do reviews on the DVDs you did VHS reviews for? No, because I would just be repeating myself with what I said in the VHS reviews. That's kind of the reason why I mentioned the DVD releases within the VHS reviews, because it's literally the same thing, just with added bonus features. So, no, I won't be doing that. Only DVDs that only have a single release, like the CGI series and onward. And here is the first question from Tudor Branku Turku. Favorite Hit Era episode? That one is really easy. Halloween. This episode has everything I'm looking for in a Thomas story, especially if it's a spooky themed one. I think the story is wonderfully written, and I don't have anything to complain about with it. And I don't say this very often, but I can actually tolerate Emily here as a character, because, well, most of the time throughout the series, she's a bit of a bitch. But back to this episode, the sets are amazing in terms of atmosphere, and the music is my favorite thing above everything else. It should not sound this good, and yet it does. Hands down, this is one of the very few hidden gems from the Hit Era. Second question, favorite Ertl? I'd have to say this particular one, as it has some very special sentimental value to me. I can't exactly say when this was given to me, but it was my very first limited edition Thomas, and I know for a fact my grandmother was the one who gave it to me. I still have that Ertl put away somewhere. It's got a couple of dings and scratches, but it will always be my favorite Ertl. And their third question, what is your least favorite Thomas VHS? Well, this shouldn't be a total surprise, but that's Trackstars. It has some of the most mediocre or worst episodes from the Hit Era. I'll go a little more in detail with that when I eventually review that tape. Fourth question, favorite Season 7 episode? Well, as I just mentioned, that would be Salty Stormy Tale. If you want to know more of what I think, be sure to check out my Thomas and the Jet Engine review, and I'll leave a link in the description. And their last question, what's your favorite video you've made? I can't really pick just one, because there's a ton of videos that I'm proud of. I especially have fun making all the music videos, and I do have a playlist of some early throwbacks, up to all my newest ones. I do have a playlist down below in the description for some of my favorites if any of you felt like checking those out. But yeah, I can't pick one. I'm proud of all the videos that I do. And here comes the first question from Liger Tamer 100. Favorite Jeff Dunham moment? I think the funniest Jeff Dunham moment that I actually witnessed before I saw the same skit on TV, when I saw him at Nassau Coliseum, he was doing this little skit with his little Jeff dummy, and they were getting into some kind of argument, and he took the puppet and made it look like it was running back and forth on its own across the stage with him chasing it. He was rolling around with it until he looks up and runs back to his seat, and what killed all of us was a guy in the audience, and he yelled, "Do it again!" And not only made the whole audience laugh, but Jeff was dying on stage. That, to me, was the funniest moment I ever witnessed. And here is their second question. What was the scariest Ghost Adventures investigation you ever watched? Are you kidding? There's tons to choose from. But honestly, nothing to me ever beats that frickin' flying brick at the Goldfield Hotel. I look at that clip now and it still gives me chills. And the fact that there's only 2 guys in the whole building and nobody else, and to see this brick and even some wood beams just move on their own, that's horrifying. There's nobody human moving them with any kind of physical force, and there's no one trying to move it with like a fishing line or whatever. That is pure poltergeist activity. I'm going to leave a link in the description to the original video, and you guys can check it out for yourselves. It's some of the craziest shit you will ever see. And here's their third question. How did you feel when Rick sacrificed himself on the bridge and will be back in one of the Walking Dead spin-offs? Well, I can't say that I was happy when Rick blew up the bridge, because for a hot minute I actually believed he was dead until Jada saved him. And now that it's revealed that he will be in one of the spin-offs, I'm actually pretty excited. All I want at the end of the day is for Rick and Michonne to make it back home to Alexandria safely, and I want them to reunite with everyone. That's all I ask. And their next question, Markiplier or Jacksepticeye? Oh my god, with the tease questions! Oh, I like them both. They're both funny and really entertaining to watch. Why make me choose between two of my favorite YouTubers?
I can't take it! I can't take it!
And their last question, which Railway series book is your most favorite? Well, I can't really say that because I've not read all the Railway series books. Shocking, I know. It's been quite a while since I've done any of those read-alongs, but when I do eventually get back to them, maybe I might have a proper answer to what book is my favorite. But at the moment, I don't. And here is one of our final questions from the Railway Illustrator. Who is your favorite Thomas Wooden Railway YouTuber? Can't give you an answer to that because that kind of content I'm simply not into. Second question, who is your favorite Hit Era character? To be honest, I don't know. Out of all the new characters, there's only some I like and a majority of them I can't stand. But out of the ones I like, I wouldn't even consider them favorites because there's no character to like, if you know what I mean. Most of them are so blandly written, and they're only one-off characters. So yeah, at the moment, I don't have a favorite. Third question, what do you think of the Unlucky Tug? I actually really like the guy. His channel is pretty entertaining. Now, sometimes I don't agree with some of the stuff he mentions, but a majority of what he does talk about makes a hell of a lot more sense. Whether it's focused on character development, how a story is written, etc. Yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. Fourth question, do you watch Game Tunes? No, because I don't even know what that is. So here's your final question. What preschool shows from Nick Jr., PBS Kids, and Disney Junior do you hate, like, or just think is okay? Okay, well, for Nick Jr. shows I like, you've got classics like Blue's Clues, Little Bear, Gullah Gullah Island, Franklin, Maggie and the Ferocious Beast, Oswald, Maisie. I grew up with some pretty cool shows from this channel, and there's plenty more. But then you've got the annoying ones like Dora, Go Diego Go, Paw Patrol, Little Bill, Max and Ruby, Peppa Pig. These are the ones I seriously can't stand, and some of these I did used to watch. With PBS Kids, you have another big batch of shows I like. You got Clifford, Mr. Rogers, Cyber Chase, I'm gonna count this one, Thomas, of course Theodore, Teletubbies. You have some pretty good ones in there. But then you got some of the stupid ones like Caillou, Arthur, Barney, Daniel Tiger. I don't care for Bob the Builder anymore. No, I don't like any of these shows anymore. And then with Disney Junior, there's not really a bunch of these I'm into. I only really like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Mickey and the Roadster Racers, The Lion Guard, and Bluey. Other Disney shows that came from Playhouse Disney, however, that's a whole nother topic. But there are tons of shows I like from that channel too. But I can't really say I hate any other show from Disney Junior, because I've not watched any other show. I'm just not interested in some of them. But yeah, that's my list of all the shows I either like, or what I absolutely despise. And there you have it. There are all the questions answered for my 2023 Q&A. I actually did not expect this to go as long as it did, but, you know, with life getting in the way and certain situations happening, you just kind of wing with these things, you know? But now that that's done and out of the way, now we can move on to the more exciting projects, which I know some of you guys are actually really looking forward to. I hope to have some of these out by the ending of summer, so be on the lookout. Until then, thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next video.